Hey kids, welcome back to Onstage, Offstage. I'm your host, George Sapio. Our guest this month is Daniel Guyton, a playwright who hails from the Atlanta, Georgia area. Daniel is a prolific writer and has a list of productions and publications that is ridiculously impressive. He's written not just plays, but screenplays and poetry as well. I started chatting with Daniel by mentioning a few of the snippets from his reviews, which are listed on his website, danguyton.com. That's DANGUYTON.com. And there are more than a few of those review snippets. The blurbs, they're a story in themselves. Have a myriad plethora of quotes on your homepage. And I'm going to read a couple of these off.
Sure.
Because the first one that I ran across was, Guyton brings tender, real moments to the stage. And that's a wonderful kudo for any playwright. Right? Get a review like that. That's wonderful. Then I saw sweetness spiced with gentle humor. And I thought, that works. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now we get to the ones that I really like. Okay, I'm going to read a couple of these off.
Sure.
No one does wonderfully dark, disturbing, character-driven shows like Daniel Guyton. That really got my attention.
Yeah, I love reading that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Then we get stuff like twisted, surreal, cruel, and hysterical, which lit me up perfectly because that's exactly what I look for.
Sure.
And then here's three more. It's like South Park on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Morally repugnant, which I love. And
My first review I ever received, and they tore me apart.
Really?
I
What?
now try to
What?
wear it like a badge of honor, but
What?
yeah.
You should. What? Which play was that?
It's a play I wrote called "I'm Not Gay," and it's a satire on homophobia.
Okay.
Uh, However, I think the reviewer misunderstood the satire. Uh, he accused me of making fun of Catholics, gays, Jews, a myriad of people, but I was trying to target specifically homophobes. But apparently the satire missed its target. Apparently,
Wow. Okay.
yeah,
It's as we all know, or many of us do know, we playwrights, that attempting satire is always a risky business because in this
yes,
case, someone didn't get the joke.
yeah. He did not get the joke, and he pretty much tore me apart as my first ever review, and it cut deep, but after I gave it some time, and after I got some other reviews more positive in other places, I was able to go back and like I said, use that as a badge of honor.
So,
The best playwrights and the best actors have always been torn apart at some point in their careers, so I take it as an honorary thing.
well, you've got to weather those. It comes with the territory. So, okay, this guy didn't like it. I'm not gay.
Yeah.
What's been the subsequent reviews for that play? Has it been produced again? And what was the reception like for those?
Yes, actually, funny enough, at the very beginning of my career, it was my most successful play. It was produced in Iceland. It was translated into Icelandic. It ran for 4 months over there, which apparently is very long in Iceland. Most shows last for about a month or so. So it ran for 4 months. I got a very positive response from there. They interviewed the actors on the Icelandic version of MTV. I didn't understand a word of the interview, but I got to hear my name in badly pronounced Icelandic, so it was really fun. So I really enjoyed that. So it was a great experience, and I thought, hey, wouldn't it be fun to bring this to New York? So I self-produced it in New York, and it got a good reception from the audience, I felt, but the reviewer was unhappy with it. So unfortunately, there was only the one review of that play in American journal. So it was offonline.com that reviewed that.
Okay, so writing something like that, and I'm gonna go backwards through my questions here a little bit because this is the way it's been taking me.
Sure.
Normally, well, I'm not gonna say normally because that's ridiculous. But why would you choose to run with a subject so potentially fraught with minefields? It's landmines in there. I mean, because that can easily, as it did,
Yeah.
All right, turn somebody completely off. But you went with a satire on homophobia, which,
Hmm.
you know, even for a well-known, worldwide well-known gay playwright, that would be taking a leap, I think.
Sure, sure, absolutely. At the time I wrote it, this was actually before Will and Grace. I wrote it, started writing it back in 1999. And I remember seeing on TV, every depiction I saw on TV was a stereotypical gay man. I never saw an actually well-rounded gay character in most of television and most of the movies. I remember the movie The Rock with Sean Connery. There was a gay hairdresser, and he just sort of
Mm.
weeps in the middle and he says, "I just want to know if you're happy with your hair." This didn't represent any gay person I knew. I have several gay cousins and a lot of gay friends being in the theater industry, and so I thought it would be fun to make fun of the stereotype and to make fun of the people that try to pigeonhole, like I said, my gay friends into this stereotype. And so it's the play starts out with two men in an elevator. There's a gay man and a homophobe. And the homophobe keeps trying to pigeonhole the gay man, and the gay man does not fit any of the pigeonhole packages that the homophobe believes he should fit into. And so there's a lot of comedy in that. And then as the play develops, of course, you get more and more farcical elements that add into it. So uh, for me, it just seemed like a rich minefield of comedy. But and a lot of people that I had readings of and read it with me, and they seem to appreciate the comedy. But like I said, this one particular reviewer and a few people weren't happy with it. But this one reviewer in particular was very dissatisfied with the
Mm.
piece. So,
Sounds like it. Well, kudos to you for A, writing it, and B, putting the review up on your homepage. Um,
I got to own it. I just can't, I mean, they're going to find it anyway. It's available. You can look it up online still to this day. So
mm,
if anybody Googles me, they will find it. So I might as well just own it.
you might as well. The snippet of reviews that I liked the best, however,
Mhm.
was right around that one, and it's Theater of the Obnoxious.
That was the same reviewer. Same
Same
reviewer.
reviewer.
Yes, he called me morally repugnant, and later at the end, he capped it with, if I would put this play in any category, I would call it a category of its own, the theater of the obnoxious.
I like
So
that.
yeah, yeah. So again, I was like, you know what, I got my own category, so let's own it. That's great.
That's the thing that great T-shirts are made of. Um, okay, as a playwright, you have been, according to your website, you have been performed over 300 productions,
Yes, sir.
which to me is a congratulations. That's
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate
Uh,
that.
but it's also a little mind-boggling too. How many plays have you written?
I would say at this point, it's about 62.
Okay, how many of them are full length? How many of them are or 10-minute
Four,
plays?
four of them are full lengths. The rest of them are either one acts or 10 minutes. So one of the secrets to my success is a lot of them are 10 minutes, and 10 minutes tend to get produced a lot more often at various 10 minute competitions around the country. So that is one of the number one secrets of my success is the fact that many of them are short and they can kind of be put into a night of short festivals very easily.
Do you enjoy writing short plays?
I do, I do. There's something very satisfying about it. You're still telling a full story. I mean, a lot of people when they write short plays tend to fall into the skit or sketch writing
Absolutely, yeah.
slump. And so being able to write a fully developed story with a character arc and everything in just 10 minutes is a challenge. It's not easy, but I feel like I've sort of I don't want to say mastered it, but I feel like it's something that I've been able to do pretty well. And as I've said it, they've been produced many times, so that people seem to respond well to them. Um, uh, from a timing perspective, I'm able to write a 10 minute in a matter of a day or possibly 2 days. So time-wise, it's easier for me to do during my day job. I work a day job, so
What is your
uh,
day job?
right now I am a college professor. I teach at Georgia Perimeter College.
What do you teach?
I teach theater appreciation, and I'm currently directing the school play as well.
Excellent. And okay, we'll get back to that in a second.
Yeah.
Um, okay, difference between writing a 10-minute play and a full-length play. How high can you reach when you're writing a 10-minute play? Because you've only got 10 minutes to
Hmm.
tell the story of change or irrevocable
Yes.
change of of what magnitude? I mean, you've only got 10 minutes. You know, in a full length
Sure.
play, we sit there for 90 minutes and we watch this whole thing
Oh, absolutely.
unfold.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
Right. Hmm. The way I
10
like to,
minutes.
sure. The
What
way I
can you
like to think about it,
accomplish?
sure, absolutely. The way I like to think about a 10-minute play is in pretty much every 10-minute play I've written, there is one problem, only one problem. Whereas in a full length, you can have subplots and you can have each character has their own issues to work out. In a 10-minute play, there's typically one problem. Often two or maybe three characters are trying to work through that one singular problem. And so the development, of course, of the piece is trying to get that problem from A to Z in a way that feels complete. And so, depending on how complex the problem is, it can be as serious as someone attempting suicide, or it could be as silly as trying to figure out what to buy someone for Christmas. So, that. But whatever the problem is, you've got 10 minutes to establish the problem, set up the characters, and then resolve the problem in 10 minutes. So when it's that focused and that highly, pinpointed and focused on that one issue, I find it's actually very satisfying to go from, A to Z pretty quickly to resolve that issue. Whereas whenever I've written a full length piece, there may only be one main problem, one main super objective. However, you can have, like I said, you can have all these subplots, you can have all these different characters who each want their own thing. That all builds into solving that one main problem.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, Over 300 productions. Again, I'm going to come back to this thing. And we're going to assume, obviously, that you write some really good material. Otherwise, sir, let's go with that. But
All right.
apart from that,
Mhm.
how do you get 300 productions? What's your process for getting your work staged? Is I'm not looking for any kind of great secret, but
Sure, sure.
that's an awful lot of productions.
Marketing, you got to market yourself. I am marketing myself constantly. I've got my website, I've got Twitter, I've got Facebook. I am constantly looking up theaters that might be interested in my material. Google is a great help for that. I write them. I say, "Hey, I've got this play that seems to match what you've done this past season. Would you be interested in reading it?" I'm also a member of the Dramatist Guild. I'm a member of the official Playwrights of Facebook. I'm a member of Playwrights Binge, and these are all groups that share different opportunities, playwriting opportunities. I enter pretty much every contest that I feel I qualify for, so I'm just constantly sending work out. And for for the 300 productions I've had, you're talking about 3,000 rejections. So it's a definitely a numbers game. I get rejected way more often than I get accepted, but I submit so often that I get picked up
Yeah.
quite a bit.
How much
Yeah.
time do you spend doing this? I mean, it seems like between your day job and this, you barely have time to change your socks and get a hamburger.
It's time consuming. Yeah, my wife complains a lot that I don't spend enough time with her because I do. I write, I submit plays, I work, and I do try to spend time with her as much as possible as well. So
Yeah,
it's a
that's kind of
challenge.
important.
It is absolutely
Yeah.
family time is important. So it is a challenge. It's not easy. I don't sleep as often as I should. That's probably part of
Mm.
it. Um, I really, and I also, I tell everybody I do not have a social life. So going out to the theater is my social life.
Well, it's also cheaper too.
It is, absolutely. Yes.
Well, actually, maybe not theater. It's one of the more expensive forms of entertainment these days.
Yeah, it can be unless you're ushering or unless you're working with the theater in some way, then sometimes you can sneak in.
There you
But yeah,
go.
I do try to see new plays around the area though, so a lot of times that does cost money.
So, how many theaters you got down? Where are you based? You're in Atlanta?
Based just south of Atlanta, so I would say Atlanta. I live south of Atlanta, but I go into Atlanta all the time for shows.
Okay, and we know Atlanta is a really good theater town. So you've got a lot of stuff to choose from.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's and quite often I'll have several friends with shows going on the same night, and I just can't see them all. So you got to pick and choose.
That sounds like a problem I wouldn't mind having myself, actually.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things you just have to, you apologize. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm seeing this person's show. I can't see yours.
Hmm.
But I'll see your next one. And so you
Cool.
yeah.
So you've recently have yet another success. You've got the Best American Short Plays has picked up one of your plays, two of your plays.
Two of my plays in yearly succession. So one was for the 2012 to 13 book, and one was for the 2013 to 14 book. So I was very excited. According to the editor, William Donastes, he said he never does that, but apparently he really liked both pieces. So I consider myself extremely fortunate that I was in 2 years in a row.
I consider you extremely fortunate also. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
wonderful.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and it's just I was honored to be in the first one. I did not expect to get in the second one, but
So, how does one get their work into the Best American Short Plays?
this was another one where I saw a call for plays. Mr. Damastes posted on one of the sites that I'm on. I believe it was Official Playwrights of Facebook, and he said he was looking for pieces for this. So I submitted the first year, and I got in. The second year, I asked him if he would accept more pieces, and he said he normally does not do the same playwright 2 years in a row.
Hmm.
And he said, "Go ahead and send it anyway." He said, "But I probably won't do it." And then he went ahead and accepted it. So,
Excellent. Had you
you know,
submitted to them before?
not before the 2012 one. No, that was the first year I'd submitted. So I submitted again, and I got in. This last year, I also submitted another one, but he decided, look, I've done you 2 years in a row. I can't do you the third
They'd have to
year.
change the title to Dan Guyton's Best American Short Plays. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. But it's definitely a big honor. I'm very honored to be in that series.
Tell us about the plays that got in.
Sure. The first one, I was very shocked to get in. It's a dark comedy. It is called The Grim Raper, and it is about the angel of death trying to pick up women the only way he knows how, with roofies. So it is
Wow.
a shocking piece. I got the idea and I went with it, and I kind of am shocked at myself at where it went.
Why does the term morally repugnant creep into my head?
No kidding, right? Exactly. But I think it's very funny, but it's very, very dark. I mean, very, very dark, especially in this age of, Bill Cosby
Oh my
allegations and all
gosh,
that stuff.
yes, I
So,
know, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
You seem to specialize in extremely touchy subjects, sir.
I am drawn to them. That's what I like to watch. Those are the movies I enjoy watching. Those are the shows I enjoy watching, and the theater I enjoy going to see, or are the ones that sort of push the edge. So
What's the funniest movie you've seen?
funniest movie I've seen. Oh wow. It's going back actually. I still think There's Something About Mary is one of my all-time favorites. Um, that one, and also, and I cannot get away from Strangelove. Doctor Strangelove
Ah, there
is
we go.
also on
Yeah.
my top five list.
Mm.
So
You mentioned the first one, and all of a sudden I thought of zippers, and I just couldn't even breathe for a second.
yes,
But
yes, great
Doctor
stuff.
Strangelove is one of
Mhm.
my all-time, like yours,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely favorite movies. It never gets old,
Oh
and
no, I've seen it a dozen times.
yeah,
More than that, it's
it's
great.
still relevant too, which
Oh
is
yeah, oh yeah.
kind of scary and in itself a condemnation of some of our societies.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
uh, where does this sense of subject come from? Why do you lean towards the dark and the risky?
You
Because
know,
it,
yeah. I'm not sure why. I think when I first started writing, in my head, somehow I thought I had to make a name for myself. And I thought, doing the shocking thing would be what made my name. And funny enough, my biggest successes have been the more tame stuff. So I have tamed myself down a bit as I've gotten older. But I still like to write the edgy stuff sometimes. But yeah, I think it was originally it was like, oh, this is how I'm going to get my name out there is by being shocking and getting
mm,
attention. I was a big fan of John Waters
sure,
movies.
yeah, yeah.
So I kind of thought that was how to do it. And like I said, as I've gotten older, I've just sort of calmed myself down a bit, and I've tamed myself. I've written a lot of children's plays recently, and more family-friendly fare, and those actually get produced a lot more often. So now I try to do like one of those one for me, one for them.
Right.
Write
Well,
one play where that I personally would enjoy, and then one that I think other people will enjoy. Uh,
there's a great market for children's plays.
Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, I don't think I told you this. Yesterday, I got a contract from Pioneer Drama Services for one of my children's plays.
Excellent, wonderful. Again,
Yes, that's
congratulations. That's
yeah,
great.
that's a company I've not worked with before. It's very excited. They're huge. They're a big market, so very excited to work with them.
I can see my listeners out there writing your name down and like starting a cult over this. This is great.
Awesome.
So let's skip
I,
to the side here for a little bit. Let's ask one of the typical questions. Why did you even begin writing plays? I mean, how did that? Some people write poetry, some people write short stories, other people write biographies, and
yeah,
whatever that sort of thing. How did you get into doing dialogue and stage
sure.
directions?
This is actually a pretty funny story. When I was younger, I started writing. My first short story I ever wrote was in second grade, and it was a pretty dark story. But I remember my teacher really liking it, and she gave me a lot of praise, and that gave me confidence to keep writing. And so I just wrote. I wrote a lot throughout my young adolescence. It was not plays. It was all poems, short stories. I used to write cartoons about my teachers. And a lot of it was very funny. I was a big fan of Weird Al Yankovic growing up and Mad
Mm.
Magazine.
Oh yeah,
So
I grew up on Mad
yeah.
Magazine. Yeah,
Oh God, yeah, it's great. So I used to imitate Mad Magazine and Weird Al, and I would, I'm talking, middle school, and
sure.
so I
Yeah.
would be, imitating what I thought was funny from those subjects. And I remember in eighth grade, and I was a very shy kid. I would sit there and writing, but I didn't actually talk out loud to people because I was very shy and mumbled a lot. I had a speech impediment. And so I remember in eighth grade, I wrote a poem. I actually wrote two poems that my teacher loved, and he put it into the school literary magazine. And I won an award for both of them. And the award was to get up and speak the poem, sort of like a poetry slam, in front of an entire audience. And I
Mm.
was so nervous. I'd never done anything like that before. It was terrifying. But I got up, I read it, and I remember laughing at it. And I was coached though, and the one of the teachers said, "It's going to be a lot funnier if you don't laugh. If you say it dead serious, you're going to get a lot more laughs." So I said, "Okay." And so that night when I performed it in front of the audience, I did it dead serious, and they laughed really, really hard. And when you're an eighth grader who's shy, doesn't have a lot of friends, and you get that kind of reception, it changed my life. And I was like, I want to do this. I want to perform. I want to get in front of an audience and make them laugh like this all the time. And so that was where I started doing. I started writing poetry slams. They were very funny poems, and I started doing that for first couple of years. And then my senior year in high school, I got into acting. And that really opened me up and got me out of my shell. And they got to help me with my speech impediment. I actually, was able to pronunciate my words properly and speak and talk from my diaphragm and all that. And so my confidence level rose like immensely. So in college, my original goal was just to go to be a writer and be like a story writer, short stories and novels and all that. But I fell in love with theater and I started doing theater classes and I started doing acting and I started doing that. And I just, at some point, I think in my sophomore year, I said, why don't I combine the two? And I started writing monologues and plays for myself to perform in. And that's where it started. And then before long, it was actually more fun watching other people perform it. And that became more fun for me. So that's kind of where it all started was, it's kind of a long journey, but it's been it feels like it was meant to be.
Well, that's the sign that you've landed exactly where you should be.
Mhm.
Yeah, it feels natural, and you've fit into your slot into the universe.
I think so.
Um,
I hope so. Yeah, I feel
yeah.
like I have.
One of the things you said struck a chord. When I was a kid, I also had speech impediments. I had first of all, I had a crazy lisp,
Mm.
right? But I also it was accompanied by a nonstop stutter.
Ah, yeah.
which
Hmm.
made speaking extremely difficult
Absolutely.
and my social life hell.
Sure,
All
sure.
right.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
How did you overcome yours?
Like I said, it was not even until my senior year in high school. It was acting classes, and it was uh, the experience in eighth grade made me want to be outgoing, made me want to get on stage, made me want to perform. But even then, I was still very shy. So in high school, those acting classes and the enunciation lessons and speaking from the diaphragm and all of that just really helped me focus and helped me hone my ability to perform in front of an audience. And so, that's kind of yeah, for me. I would say any child with a speech impediment or anything, I would say definitely sign them up for acting classes. It helped me immensely.
That's an interesting thing. That was not a possibility when I was going through grade school, which I think
Yeah.
was around the time of Paul Revere. But yeah, I went through the therapy and I went through the holding the mirror in front of me, and
Yeah.
I think I found my way out of it, oddly enough,
Mhm.
by becoming the class clown.
Ah, yeah. See, a similar story. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. You went through acting class, and I spent my time shooting verbal barbs at
Mm-hmm.
my fellow students, at the
Yeah. Fun.
teachers,
Yep.
saying anything. And we go back to something else you were just talking about, getting people to laugh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Isn't
That was a big thing for me.
isn't that just one of the most remarkable
Mm-hmm.
emotional things you can go through, to just have people crack up at
Yes.
whatever it is
Yes.
you're,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a, and I remember the experience when I was, like I said, even as an eighth grader doing this, I had to pause for laughter, and I remember sitting there for it was just a couple seconds, but I remember thinking, they are laughing at what I am doing. This is
Mm.
so cool. Like it was just so surreal because being a relative wallflower most of my life up until that point, it was eye opening for me. I had not experienced that really before, so it was really cool.
Have you become more gregarious, more outgoing?
I think so. I mean, I'm not. I'm still not a social butterfly. As I said, I do not have a very active social life. But when I am in front of people, for example, I'm a teacher. I think I'm a pretty fun teacher. I like to crack jokes and stuff like that, and I do like to keep the classroom entertained. And I'm able to get on stage very easily, very comfortably now, which is for years, I even as much as I enjoyed acting, I had terrible stage fright. But I rarely ever get that kind of debilitating stage fright like I used to get
Well,
anymore.
for somebody who actually had stage fright, or anybody who has stage fright, the choice of teaching a class is not the first thing you'd think of, for someone
Sure,
with
sure.
that. So let's talk about teaching for a second. You teach
Yeah,
theater appreciation at the college
I do.
level,
Yes.
and as any good writer, any good playwright has to know, you have to learn more about human nature. So
Hmm.
how does this position, how does this job, how do your students, what do they teach you about human nature?
It's fun because as a theater appreciation teacher, of course, I appreciate theater. I went through classes and I've been a fan of theater for close to 20 years now, and so for me, it's a natural thing. But trying to convince others, and these are mostly non-theater majors. These are math majors and business majors, and they're just doing this for the humanities credit. And so trying to convince them why theater is relevant and important it takes a different mindset. I've got to put on a different hat. I've got to kind of see the world through their eyes and try to use their potential lack of interest as a way of trying to like turn it around. And so I've got to kind of look at it from their eyes. I've got to approach the material as though I didn't know the stuff, so I can really sell it to them and convince them this is good stuff. And hopefully I'm doing a good job. They seem to respond well. So it is definitely an interesting experience teaching the material versus learning it because you have to learn it all over again in a way to teach it.
Do your students ever show up in your work?
That's a Yes, I've written a few plays where, especially if I'm writing about younger people. Right now, like I said, I've written a few children's plays, and there are children in those plays, and some of them are definitely representative of children I've actually worked with. So, yeah, they do sometimes.
Cool.
Very disguised. I do not want any of them to recognize themselves per se, but yeah, there's their characteristics are there.
Cool.
Mhm.
You mentioned you spend a lot of time going to see theater, and that's one of the best things that any playwright can do.
Absolutely.
And I've got two questions that are going to piggyback off of this. And the first one is, what's the best thing or the best lesson you've learned from going to see theater?
Yeah, funny enough, I have learned more from the bad plays I've seen than from the good plays in some cases. There's something about seeing a play that doesn't work that in my brain immediately goes, well, what could be done to fix this? And so when I'm writing a play that even may remotely be similar to what that is, it's like immediately, okay, fix all the errors and don't make those same mistakes that I saw there.
Can you give me
Uh,
an example without naming
yes.
names that we no we don't want to
Yeah, I developed my real love for theater in college primarily. I saw a lot of shows in college, and I remember seeing a show that it was just extremely preachy. It was covering a social topic. Thinking back, I think it was actually a date rape subject, but it was very preachy. And I remember thinking nobody talks this way. Nobody, like if this were a real scenario, there's all levels of subtext that would be there. People would not be openly talking about how they feel about this issue. They'd be covering it up. They'd be masking their feelings, trying to pretend like they're not upset, but they are upset. And so I remember thinking these people are talking way too much. They're telling way too much of the verse. And I was 22 when I saw that, I think. But I remember, it really had an impact on me. And so I was writing a play at the time about teen pregnancy, and I remember distinctly I did not want to preach. It was a social topic similar to the other one, but I did not want to preach. I did not want to beat anyone over the head. It was very important to me that these characters talked around the subject and avoided talking about it, even though you knew it was on their mind. And so, finding the subtext there rather than the actual in your face dialogue. And so that was an example of a bad play. In my mind, it was a bad play that taught me a great deal about what I need to do to make my play better. So,
Cool.
yeah. Mhm. And then I've seen plays that worked wonderfully and brilliantly. For me, um, plays that say less are almost always more powerful to me. So I've seen plays that cover a wide gamut of emotions in very few words, and I'm blown away by those, and that's taught me that I could be sparser in some of my language as well.
Do you tend to be wordy?
Actually, not so much. In my writing, I tend to write. The biggest criticism I tend to get in my first drafts is that there's not enough there, and it's maybe not as clear as it should be. So my first drafts are almost always not enough. I have to add more in to make it clearer what I'm going for. Um, so for me, there's always this immediate editor in my brain cutting back the language. So for me, they tend to be, if anything, I tend to go too sparse more than too wordy.
Okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
because my other question, one of my other questions is going to be, what's the difference between your first draft and the finished product? But I think you just answered that.
Yeah, yeah. First draft in my plays, typically, I know a lot of writers will write everything and then go back with the red pen and cut out. Me, I tend to cut out before it's even there.
Mm,
And then people will say, well, I don't understand. What does that mean? And then I go, okay, well, let me add this in and I'll add a sentence or two. And they go, oh, now I get it. So it's kind of like I try to not do too much with the for the audience. I try not to spell anything out for the audience, and sometimes it's too vague. And so that's my first draft is they tend to be too vague, and I have to go back in and explain things a little bit more.
gotcha.
Mhm.
Um, so what else in theater do you do? I think you mentioned earlier that you were directing
Yep,
the
directing this school play
the school
for
play. Which play is that?
Sure. We're closing Cat on a Hot Tin Roof this weekend, actually.
Ah,
Tennessee Williams classic. So it's been a lot of fun. It's a hard play. It's a really hard play, especially for college students. But they're doing a great job with it, and we're closing this weekend, and I'm really proud of them. They did a great job with it.
what was your biggest challenge doing this?
Biggest challenge, I think, working with a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds who are playing 65-year-old, Big Daddy and Big Mama. Those are the hardest roles, I think. They could mostly relate to Brick and Maggie. They're only a few years older than these actors, but Big Daddy, who's dying of cancer, for an 18-year-old kid to play that role is it's a challenge. And there's a lot of language. Big Daddy rambles a lot, so trying to get an 18-year-old kid who's kind of active and energetic, trying to get him to be 65, feel the pain of a 65-year-old man who's
How do you do
dying.
that?
um, Luckily, the actor who's playing him is very talented character actor, and so he came in with a voice and a walk for this character right away. So it's like he was almost like imitating his grandfather, I think, and he kind of came in with that. So, of course, the challenge then is making it realistic and not a caricature. So that's been the challenge with him. But the biggest challenge for this particular actor is Big Daddy's dialogue is so verbose, and he repeats a lot of things, and he says things just slightly different each time. And so getting this actor to realize, okay, when you say it this time, it has to be different than when you say the exact same thing the next sentence, because each time he's adding a new nuance to it. And so that's working with the student to try to get him to say each sentence with a new form of nuance, and even though he's saying the exact same thing 3 or 4 times in some cases, he's got to say it differently each time.
Hmm,
And so that's been the challenge. But luckily he's a very talented actor, and he's been doing really well. I'm really proud of
cool. How does directing a play affect your writing a
him.
play?
Oh, perfect question. It definitely shapes. When I am writing, of course, the one thing first thing is, okay, the character has to make sense, the dialogue, the story has to make sense. But as a director, I go, man, why the hell did this writer put in, we have to have this set design or this thing, or this? It's so impossible to do this. And I'm so frustrated with the writer for putting this in. And, so now as a writer, I, try to only put in set pieces that I think would be really fun for a set designer to make, or try to put in action in the play that I think would be really fun for a director to put together. I am very conscious of anything that I ask my actors or directors or set designers to do in my plays. I'm very conscious of what I personally enjoy putting on this production. And if there's anything in there that I think, man, I wouldn't want to do that, then I make sure not to require a director or actor or set designer to do that. So that it does definitely shape my what I'm willing to put other people through. If that makes sense.
So I guess you would encourage playwrights to get into other aspects of theater, especially directing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think having any other aspect on stage is helpful, because if you're writing a piece, and it's important to you that this actor is in this scene in this costume, and then in the next scene in less than a second later in another costume. That is a major challenge for the costume designer to switch costumes and everything. And it may be doable, it may be fun, you may have a good idea of how to make that work, but if you're going to require that of them, you have to kind of have an idea as the writer how that's going to be physically possible. And
Right.
so I've seen many young writers, write almost in a cinematic style where they expect the actor to go from one scene to the next in
Hmm.
a matter of seconds, and completely transform in some way that's almost physically impossible. And I find I don't think it's always impossible. There's always creative solutions to every problem, and I admire costume designers and set designers, directors who are able to come up with creative solutions to these challenging plays. But as like I said, as a writer for myself, I try to if I'm going to put in a challenge, I want to make sure it's a fun challenge. I want to make sure it's a challenge they will enjoy undertaking.
Mm. I had a student a while back in one of my beginning playwriting courses who was doing exactly what you're talking about, writing the same character, going from one scene to the next
Yeah.
different clothes, different. Yeah, it would have
Mhm.
been the most hellacious quick changes you've ever seen. And
Yeah.
I brought this up to him, and he basically looked at me and he said, "Well, they can handle that in tech. That's what the stage manager's for." And
Yeah, many playwrights feel that way. It's true. Um,
I thought, let me bring him into my rehearsal space and have him repeat this. I would just love to
exactly.
see the looks on people's
I know,
faces.
no kidding, right? No kidding. And another thing too that bothers me, and I've noticed this specifically in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and I love Tennessee Williams, brilliant writer, of course, but he has characters in there that have like one or two lines, and then they're gone the whole rest of the show, and the characters of the servants particularly. And as a
It
writer, I just find that so shocking. I would never do that to an actor. Just give
That
him one
drives
line.
me nuts.
It does. It drives you crazy. And you think Tennessee Williams would know better, but and it's still a beautiful play. I get it, but it's a sort of thing where as a writer, I would never do that to an actor. Make him be there the
No,
whole
yeah.
show just for one line. I feel bad as a director making them do it. So I try to give them some other things they can do backstage, and some of them are helping with costumes and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it's
That's
still
just wrong. That's really
it is.
unless,
Yeah.
it's like the Alanis Morissette bit in Dogma where she comes in at the end, and
Well,
she plays
if there's
God.
a really
It's.
funny, reason for it, and that's one thing. But
Right, right. Okay,
yeah, I really struggle with that.
couple of really quick questions, then I'll let you get back to submitting your next 43 prize winners. Um, got a favorite playwright?
I do. Harold Pinter is my all-time favorite.
Okay, why?
Yeah. There's something about the sparseness of his language that just really set me off and really got me excited, and I loved it. I he was I was getting my master's in theater, and he was my thesis project was to write about Harold Pinter, and I just immediately fell in love with his dialogue. There's just something so rich and meaningful about the way he can say a million things in a silence. There's so much there in just him not, a character not saying a word,
Right.
or the character will say one word and it just means everything. And there's just something really, really stirring about that, and I'm fascinated by his work.
Ever direct Pinter?
I have. I directed a scene from the Hot House, which was great fun. I want to direct a full length of his, but this was a class project. I directed a scene from it, and we just had a ball. It was great.
Cool. All right. Last question,
Yeah.
and then I'll let you go. Death of a Snowman. You are, as I read, you are producing an animated version of your play, Death of a Snowman. Tell us
Yes,
about the
I
play and
sure.
what's
It is.
involved in producing this.
It's been a challenge. It is a 10-minute piece, so it's a short piece, and it's family friendly. It's one of my family friendly pieces, and it usually gets done a lot around the holidays. It is a snowman and a little girl, and they are discussing the afterlife because the snowman's about to die, and this little girl has recently lost her mother, and so she's trying to understand what death is, and so she's doing so by conversing with the snowman. And so that's what the piece is. It's a very sweet little, kind of sad, kind of funny, charming little piece about death, basically, and this little girl trying to understand it. And so that's what the piece is. And ever since I've written it, I always thought it would be kind of fun as an animated short. And you see these animated shorts at the Academy Awards and all these, and of course, it's always been in my back of my head. Maybe I could, submit this for the Academy Award or something like that. Who knows? But
Hmm.
anyway,
So who's
I
animating it and what kind of animation?
sure it is a friend of mine. Her name is Lisa Marie Erickson, and she is an animation student, or actually, she's now graduated, and she is brilliant at doing 3D animation, kind of like the Pixar stuff. Much smaller budget than Pixar, but
Oh.
uh,
I think
much smaller budget.
I think the Department of Defense has a smaller budget than Pixar.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. So she's doing it in this 3D animation style, and it's just really I'm so amazed with the work she's doing. And the fun part was I got to go in the recording studio, and I did the voice of the snowman. A friend of mine's daughter plays the young girl, and we got to record that about a month ago. And it was a lot of fun acting in it, virtually acting in it,
Mm.
and the animation is slowly but surely coming together. So I'm excited. It's probably going to take another 5 or 6 months before it's done. It's just a 10-minute piece, but it's still um, there's a lot of work that goes into the animation, of course.
I'm sure it's
But
got to be, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But this is a project I have been saving up for a long time. I wrote the play back in 2009, and so for the last 6 years, I've been kind of wanting to do this, and so I've been saving up the money, and we finally got enough money saved up, and we're going ahead with it. So it's a self-produced project, but it's something that I'm very proud of and excited about.
Excellent. Best of
Yeah.
luck to you with this thing. I'm sure
Hey,
it's going to be wonderful. Let us know when it comes out, and we'll mention it for you.
wonderful. That'll be great. Yeah, I'll be happy to. Please.
Cool. Dan Guyton, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thanks for stopping by. And I say good luck. I would say good luck with your future stuff, but I really, honestly, don't think you need that.
You're sweet. Thank you,
It's
George. I appreciate that.
Hey kids, thanks for listening to Onstage Offstage. Onstage Offstage is produced monthly, and our podcast can be found at onstageoffstage.org and also on iTunes. If you enjoy what we do, please recommend us to your friends. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at OnOffstage. And if you are a theater artist with an upcoming project of interest, or work in a part of theater we haven't covered yet, or know someone who'd make good chat, send us a note at info@onstageoffstage.org. Our intro music is Doomsday Travelogue, and the outro is Surf Good, Surf Fast, both by the composer Steve Channon. You can hear more of his work on SoundCloud. Thanks to everybody once again, and happy theatering to all of you.